Alright, folks, welcome to another episode of Blazor State Has Changed. Let's cut this music down a bit and we'll get started with the show today. We're just coming off of the Blazor Day. That was this week. Just yesterday, actually. Blazor Day was yesterday. It was a pretty cool event. I was happy to be a part of it. Had 2 sessions, and some of the content is going to carry over to today. How many of you got to see Blazor Day? If you're in the chat room. What's up, Chicken Wing? So blazorday.net is where you can find the info on Blazor Day. And there should be YouTube videos of all the sessions. Let's see where they stuck those. Streamed live. The whole live stream is there. I think they cut the sessions into singular pieces as well. Or at least they timestamped them so you can find all of the different sessions. So, good deal there. Saw my first session, but not much else. It's okay, Mr. Magoo. There was a lot of stuff going on that day. There was a lot of good sessions from a lot of familiar faces and names there. So make sure you check that out if you haven't already. I had a session that I did not time well. So I kind of ran out of time for the last bits. And I'm going to play around with those bits today. So I'm going to jump back into... yeah. I took a week off. I did an entire week of streaming 2 weeks prior, Mr. Peter Morris. I did an entire week of live streams as part of Blazing into Summer. We had Daniel Roth and Chris Santi and myself and Jeff Fritz, and it was a whole thing that took up my whole week. So I took a week off, and there was some scheduled tweets that still went out, so it kind of was confusing. So that happened. But I'm back. I'm back, and we're going to play with Blazor today. If you're new to the show, if you are joining us from the prior Blazor Day, I'm going to put a link in chat for my code snippets. Let's see if that actually works. There goes the bot. It's a little slow today. So in Visual Studio Marketplace, I've got some snippets that'll help you with creating components and just kind of templating some things out. I find them super helpful to the point where I'm using them and not realizing that I'm using them and not everybody has them. WQ Walter, thank you for the subscription. 3 months in a row. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. I'm glad you're enjoying the show. So I've got the snippets out there. You can hit the link up. They're free. You can grab those on Visual Studio Marketplace, install those, and they will give you some nice little code helper snippets like, let's see. I'm gonna erase this for a minute. You can do let's see, it's help tab, and you will get a list of all the available snippets that are there. There's one for forms, so if you don't remember how to do a form in Blazor, you just type form, hit tab, and you get all the things you need to build a form, and so on. I won't go through them all again today, but they're in there. And then I'm going to publish this little project here as a gist later today as well. This is what I was working on with the Blazor Day examples that I had. And let me know if this font size is working well there, chat room. On my preview window, it's looking a little small. If it's too small to read, let me know. I'll bump that up. Always let me know if you can't see or hear something. And also, new green screen. Check that out. I've got no background anymore. How cool is that? All right, let's see. We're missing a using statement in here. As soon as I add that, I can show you where I left off on the Blazor Day examples that I was working with, because I want to play around with something today that I think might be an interesting take on templating, and I haven't seen this used yet. We haven't used it in our Blazor components either, but I thought this might be something that is a useful idea anyhow, and I'd like to see how far we can push it today. So I've got a list of components, and these are alert boxes or Bootstrap alert boxes. I'm kind of picking up where I left off from Blazor Day. If you want me to recap any of this, please feel free and ask if you don't understand something. So basically we have two components. We have an alert box, which is very simple. It has an underscore for some reason. Let's kill that. Try opening it again. There we go. It's a little false negative there. Oh, thanks for the follow. Appreciate that. So the alert box is really simple. It's just a div, and it appends the CSS class to the container there, and then it has a child content. I do not understand why this is rendering ambiguity between child content and alertbox.child content. I think this is just the Blazor engine, or the Razor engine being the Razor engine in Visual Studio and throwing false negatives at me. So let's do this. Let's try clean first. See if we can get these false errors out of there. The app runs, so I know it's a false error. I will close that and that and that. I haven't had to do this in a while. I don't know why it's doing it, but we'll fix this up real fast. I'm going to toggle to a folder view, and oh, actually, I think I saw it. Yeah, why is the bin folder here? Delete. Bye-bye. Access denied. All right. Toggle to a folder view. I think that bin folder is throwing it off. Hide and show. Delete the bin folder. We don't need the bin folder to show in our project. Let's come back to our solution and do a rebuild again. And if this doesn't work, I might just ignore it because it's not a legit concern. I think that did the trick. Not seeing the red squiggles anymore. So sometimes your bin folder will get a little wonky and cache will build up there for some reason and not clear out. And it'll give you weird errors like that. So if you delete your bin folder, it's a safe thing to do. It gets rebuilt anyway. That will fix things. So build succeeded. So let me go back to explaining what this does again. This is about the simplest component that you can imagine. Let's see if I can do a quick zoom here. Yeah, the child content gets written there, and the CSS class gets appended here, and that makes our alert box. Now I have an alert list. This is a little bit more complex. I've got t-item, which is a generic typed item for Blazor. It's meant to be used for creating repetitive, enumerable components and assigning a template to the items that you pass in. So there's a for each that's going to loop over all of those items, and it's using that same alert box, and it is doing a check to see if there is a delegate to handle a deleting of one of these alert boxes from the list. And then it has a item template, and then there are fields just backing the data that's represented there. And then I have this thing called CSS map, and this is where I left off on Blazor Day. And I wanted to kind of get into this because I thought this was a fun idea. I haven't used it in practice yet, so I will give you a little word of warning. This isn't something I've tested out too in depth, But what the idea here is, okay, I can use a singular alert box, and let's put one of those in. Hang on, I've got to borrow a little bit of code here. So you'll see me drag and drop some things and delete some stuff. There we go. So here we go. Let's run this. And it's already working at full capacity here, but we've got the count up here as counts 25. So I'm going to change this to display inside of an alert as well, because I want to use both the list alert and the regular alert. So I've got my alert box. We'll go ahead and move that code down. And then, sorry, I think I popped my chat room off of my main window here. Let me get that back. So there we go. I want to be able to see chat if there's any questions. Yeah, Curious Drive. I finally got a green screen. Hopefully it's looking good. It took a little while to get it set up just right. What's nice is I got a tip from Bald Bearded Builder, who also has a great channel. Does some really good shows. He said get a pull down screen, and I didn't even know they made those, but it's like a movie screen that pulls down from the ceiling. Took me all of about 10 minutes to set it up, and now it tucks nicely away into my ceiling, and you don't even see it when I'm not streaming, so it's really cool. I love it. It's got some lighting issues right now, so I'm working on lighting it next. Just like streaming stuff, it's really a full-time hobby. So I've placed an alert box in Razor formatting in the index page, and let's play with the alert box for a second, because this is the singular version of the alert box. It defaults to danger or red background, the warning background. So the class for that is alert danger, I believe. So here's the deal. On the singular version of the alert box, not a list bound, I can easily come in and set the class for that. So let's go to the index page, and you'll see I have a CSS class attribute or property, and I can set this, and I can say alert-info, and I'm going to save that. We'll refresh that page, and now it's blue. So I've got that alert box, and it is blue. I can put any of the Bootstrap classes in there. I can say secondary, and I think that one's like gray or something. So if we run that again, now it's gray. Okay, so on a single alert box, this works great. I can just set the CSS class, and that is going to set explicitly that instance of that class's display type. And it'll, yeah, my chat room keeps going away. There we go. Too many windows here. If you guys saw all of the things that go on behind the scenes to make one of these shows happen, I can't give full-time streamers enough credit. It's not easy stuff. All right, so I've got this gray background because I set that alert box class. This is really easy for a single alert box item. However, if I have an alert list, I have many of these alert boxes rendering in the list. So let's actually take this out for a minute. And let me back up a little bit and show what the idea is here before we implement it. So if I run this without that property set, they all default to danger. So we don't have any other colors in here. If I have a singular alert box, it's easy to set the CSS class, but in my alert list, I have many alert boxes that may or may not all be the same class. So if I have one overall CSS class, I don't have this exact property here, but if I did, for example, if I said CSS class equals, and I said alert secondary, then all of the, well, first of all, I have to decide how I want to control that CSS class. Do I apply it to every alert box? Do I apply it at the top level of the list? If we look at the code for the alert box, you can see I'm using this CSS map thing here, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But do I apply, if I have a single CSS class setting, it would apply to all of those items if I didn't do something outside the box. So, no pun intended, by the way. So I have to figure out how I can take something that is normally a singular setting and apply it to a broad range of items. So let's see, how many screens do I have? I have 2 screens. I have one small screen and one big 27-inch, and then one 19-inch. The 19-inch is portable, so I can use my 19-inch if I'm on the go, which hasn't been a thing lately as of January in the pandemic stuff. But before the pandemic, I used to take my portable monitor with me, so it's a little nice-have screen to prop up on the side of my desk. And then my main screen, I'm looking for a replacement. But again, due to COVID, they're hard to find. It's hard to find a 27 to 30-inch monitor right now that is not priced completely insane, because I think production got cut for a while and backlog is gone. So I'm waiting for stores to get more in stock and the prices to go back down, so I can get a new monitor. This one's got some small issues that are kind of rough on the eyes. So Omar is suggesting alert list, public iCollection alert boxes for each alert box. So here's the thing. Whoops. If I were to do all of that stuff, Omar, it's still applying that same alert class to all of the boxes. And then I would also run into an issue where, okay, maybe I don't want to force the user to store CSS value. In like, I could expose a property that the user could bind to, and then that would have to be on their data model. And maybe they already have some data there, but they don't want to necessarily shape that data inside their model. So let's look at the data model for a minute. Let's look what I've got. I've got a log item. Maybe the log item is a thing I don't have control over, and I don't want to write a view model and do a bunch of mapping and stuff inside of a view model to where I have public string CSS class or something like that. And then I have to go through and set all of those in my view model and then bind to that. So I don't want to do that. So I came up with this idea. So the idea is I'm going to give the user a higher order function or a function delegate. And oops, zoomed in the wrong place. This is my alert list. So the alert list has a parameter that is a function delegate, and it is a function that takes t item and returns a string. Okay, so I'll have to take a look at that Alienware monitor. I'll pull that up in a second, by the way. And then, as I was making mention to on Blazor Day, I like to set defaults for everything so components don't blow up or get in some weird state when things aren't set. So I'm going to default that to danger if no delegate is set. Now, up in here, I'm using the singular alert box, and I'm setting that CSS class, and I'm going to call that CSS map delegate and pass in the item. And again, this is a function that takes the item and returns a string. So now what I can do is in the consumer at the index page level, this is really cool. I can call this function delegate CSS map, and then I can point it. I've also named the handler CSS map. And this is going to, again, it's a function that takes the t item and returns a string. So CSS map is going to take my log item, and then on the log item, I can inspect a property of my choosing. In this case, I'm going to select a level, and I'm going to do a switch statement here. And this is using the new C# 8 switch statement, in case you don't recognize what that code is. Whoops. Because I actually had to look up the new syntax for it. There we go. There's the right one. So you can basically use these lambda arrows here, but it's just basically a switch statement. So it's going to do a switch and look at the log level of my T item, my log item. So log level, if it's a warning, it will be alert or warning. If it's critical, it'll be danger. If it's error, it's danger. And it defaults to alert info. Oh yeah, this is so this is really cool, Omar. Omar said he hadn't seen the alerts or the switch before. Close all these tabs out. It was on MS Docs, I think. Switch expressions, C# 8. This is probably just one of many places I looked this up, but here's one place you can check it out. So you can do these new switch statements. Now, the way they're written is a little bit inverted from the normal switch. So in a normal switch statement, you have switch first, and then it says switch on, and then you give it the thing you want to switch on, and it will generally template out the things that you're going to switch. With the new switch statement, the variable name comes first. So the thing you're going to switch on actually gets reversed. So you would move this in front of the switch statement, and then these become the values of the variable. So you don't even need to define, you can define the variable if you want to, but this is going to be the switch on value, and then whatever will actually be like the value, and then thanks IntelliSense, and then result. So that's how the new switch statement works in C# 8. So you kind of move things around a little bit. I like the way they read. I think they're pretty slick. But that is mapping. Yeah, and don't forget your semicolon at the end. So I've basically delegated to the consumer now a mapping delegate. So I can tell the user of the alert list to go ahead and choose your way of mapping something from T item to give me the CSS that you'd like to render. So now this is happening on a per component level inside of the list, and each alert box is going to call that mapping function and return, which it will override this default. It will then return one of the appropriate strings to set that CSS class. And then if we refresh this, you'll see that these are all different, and they're based on the log level now. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I like this map idea. Now, there's only one real property in the alert list, but there are other components, and this is something I might bring to our engineering team and see if it's got some legs, because with the Telerik UI for Blazor, we have a similar behavior. I'll show you how we use it here in our drop-down list. I really like the way we do this. So think of a drop-down list. It has two main components here. You have your drop-down item, and it has a text and a value property. And then there's also the selected value too. So I guess there's three key things. And let's see if I can find it in here. I may have to go to the docs for it. So the way we handle this, here we go, is we allow you to set a text field and a text value. So we have text field, field value. So you can bind any type of item, and then you're just telling us which properties that you want the text and the value to come from. And behind the scenes, that uses some reflection, and the reflection just looks at it looks up the text and finds the property that belongs to, and then gets the value from it. Same with the value field. So those are pretty interesting ways of handling that type of scenario, where I could have in here, instead of said CSS map, I could have said CSS property value or property or whatever, and then we could have pointed it at a property on our log item and tried to derive CSS from that. The thing I like about the map approach is we can put a small snippet of code in there that can do some transformation in addition to the field that we're looking at. So we'll run another experiment with this in a minute. We'll add kind of a faux property, I guess, to the alert box, just so we have something to work with, because I want to explore this idea a little bit more and see what we can make out of it. So let's play around with this for the next half an hour or an hour. So I'm going to go to my alert, let's see, alert list, because this is a list concern, I think. Let's see, maybe alert box first. And let's add some other type of property in here. How about disabled? That might be one that's more realistic. Said we'd put something kind of fake in there, but let's try to add a disabled feature here. Let's see, it would be tool, disabled, get set. That's going to default to false. We don't want that to be false by default. I'm going to set a true default there. So if this is disabled, then up here we'll say disabled. And this is a little tip for Blazor, is you can write the property just like that, and it will, and I'm hoping this does what I say it's going to do. Let's see here. Div alert info. Oh, it is rendering disabled. Shoot, that is not what I wanted. Oh, I defaulted it to true. I wanted that to be false. So yeah, defaulting to false is fine. Default to false. Let it rebuild again. And I guess there's no... I guess because it's a div, it's not going to do anything different. Oh wait, no, this is correct. So I have alert warning, and that one's not disabled. Let's throw a disabled state on those. Let's disable all of them by default from here, just for an example. So we'll disable everything, and then it should toggle the disabled state there. So notice it's either disabled or it's not disabled. So Blazor is smart enough to convert disabled, if it's true, to just put the word disable or the attribute disabled in there. If it's false, the attribute disappears. How come no alert list view? Yeah, I would definitely use those things, Omar. This is coming from a conference that we just did, Blazor Day, where we were showing kind of how to get started, build your own components. But yeah, I would definitely use those things instead of doing all this. Is more showing architecture patterns than it is trying to develop a solid alert list control. So just kind of showing how the internals of some of these components should work. And I'm finding some new ideas here, and I'm thinking that this map idea might have some legs and be something that is either interesting and adds value to our Teller products, or is something that people might want to try on their own and see if it works in their own components. So I'm kind of testing that out today. I just kind of came up with this idea the other day. So now I have disabled is true, and it's not really doing anything different though, I don't think. If it's disabled, I can still click the delete button. That's probably not good. So what I probably need to do is, let's see here. All right, let's do this. Let's give it a different color, at least if it's disabled. So I've got CSS class, alert danger. I don't like to do things this way, but we have to start somewhere. And we'll say, oops, string disabled class class equals, and we'll throw a read-only property here that says if it's disabled. Again, there's better ways to do this, but this will get us started. If it is disabled, then I think there is a Bootstrap disabled alert. Maybe there isn't a disabled alert. Okay. There is not one. We will make one up. So let's do alert dash. This wants something visible we can look at. So dark. We'll say dark. If we set it to disabled, it'll be dark. And we need to display that CSS here. Oh, and of course, I missed that as well. So it's going to append an alert dark. Let's see what that does. There we go. So it's blacking it out. So that'll work. It's something we can look at anyway. So we're going to change the CSS value there. Now, how would I handle that from a list perspective? And this is where the map idea comes in handy again. What if I was inspecting something on my alert list, my log items, that cause me to want to disable that item? And maybe even if it's disabled in a list capacity, I want to remove the delete button or disable the delete button as well, because it looks like if I disable the alert box, it doesn't seem to affect that delete button. So how can I do all that? So what if I add a map for that as well? That could be a thing maybe. So that would be similar, and it'd be a parameter. Here, we'll use our code snippets. Para, tab, and I want a bool. Nope, I want a function that returns a bool. Nope, I want a function that takes a T item and returns a bool. So now I can use any value on my my array, my T item array, And we'll call this disable map. And we need to default this because it will throw an exception if we do not. We're going to throw away, that's a throwaway character if you are new to that. Throw away that parameter or their argument. And we need to set a delegate. And what I'm going to say is this is always true unless we otherwise set something here. Or, sorry, false. False. So disabled map will always be mapping to false unless we override it. And then up here in disabled, we'll replace this with disabled map. And then we will put the item here and pass that to our disabled map delegate. So now every time we create an alert box, it will look at the delegate and run it. If there's nothing there, it returns false, and disabled is false. If there is a delegate here, it will invoke that code and return that mapped true or false. So in my consumer level on the alert list, now I have the disabled map, and I can say, I can even open a paren here, and I can put code in line. Actually here if I wanted to. And I could say that the item dot, let's say, if the level is something, we could look at the level again, or we could look at the ID. The message is going to be pretty random. Let's do this. Let's say if the ID is equal to 5. So that actually will disable the 5th one, if I am correct. So let's run that. And look at that. Number 5, because the ID is 5, is disabled. Pretty cool. So now I've got this mechanism in my property that allows me to determine a value of one of the sub-items. One reason this stuff is kind of difficult is because your template is rendering in this region here. So in order to affect something up at the higher level, I have to get creative. And all of this is generic as well. So in order for it to stay generic, we have to do something of the generic nature, like put a function of t_item in here that we can look at, inspect, and make decisions on in the outside of the template region. So that lets me do that here, and then I can also push that down to this level. And instead of running the delegate twice, let's see. We'll keep it this way. We shouldn't run it twice, but we'll leave it as is for now. We also have the ability to put that in our button. So if I do button, this needs to be lowercase disabled here because it is not a property. We can also call the disabled map again and evaluate it for that. Again, 5 still renders, but now the button is not clickable. So now the button is also deterministic of the map. So I can delete these, right? So how is equals false different from throwing away that? So this, let's see if it takes that, and then we'll discuss. So let's see if it will let me do that. Yeah, it's going to cause an error. So we're not going to satisfy the return type, or the actual the parameter type with just calling false. So what the parameter expects here is a func of t_item that returns true or false. And if we call a function of t_item, we're not taking in t_item by saying false. This is actually a return value. So we can't convert a bool into a func of t-item bool. So what we can do here is we can either say throw that away like this, which is the same as saying item and then throwing it false. But we're not using item on the other side of the lambda, so there's no use in even writing it in this space, so we throw it away. So this underscore is just saying we're just tossing that attribute, or not attribute, the parameter value away, and just returning false in its place. Why not hide the delete button in addition to disabling it? We could. I think the main thing is to show that we're able to do first of all, disable actually disables the button click, so that's important to kind of note there. On a div, it doesn't cascade down and disable all of the items within it. On a form, it would. If you disable a form element, it will disable all of the fields inside of the form, I believe. It's either form or form group. One of the form containers. It might be. I'm trying to remember now. Form disabled HTML. There's a couple ways to disable forms. So if I can disable a field, but I can also disable a entire form or a form. Where's all the form group stuff at? Form. I'm terrible with this stuff. So form can be disabled, and also field set can be disabled. You can disable an entire field set. That will cascade down to all of the field items in that field set. So disabled can be a pretty powerful thing. And then it kind of gives you a UI hint as well that there is an action that can take place, but for some reason it is disabled. So we've got that. So this brings up another question to me. I like this approach, but it seems to be a little verbose. So if I have 10 properties on the child item, do I want 10 additional property maps that go to each one? Or is there a way that I could do a more generic property map that includes all of the items, like all of the properties, and lets me set those on the individual items? So I was kind of thinking about this, and what if instead of having an individual CSS map and a disabled CSS or a disabled map, what if there was some like ultra generic thing that said, this is like my all properties map. I don't know what I'd call it, because naming things is hard, right? Naming things is the worst. So I could have some kind of parameter and say public func of t item that returns like a configured alert box. And I'm trying to think what that would look like. Or maybe it's not a func. Maybe it's an action that... I don't know if that's going to... No, it should... let's see. So what if this was an action... I'm just kind of riffing here, so bear with me. An action that takes a T item and come on, T item, and the action takes a alert box. So it takes, so this is a function that has no return, and okay, so quick question here. How do you make it read the local host? Mine always displays the path from the file on the hard drive. On the browser, are using Chrome. You need a local host server. Okay, yeah, so I'm using the, I'm using Chrome. Oh, I see there's actually, so it colored both of your conversations the same, so it looks like one question being asked. Now I see there's two names there. So DJ Shamps, it looks like you're maybe running the files directly from disk instead of using something like Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code that has a runner. What you want to do, if you're running it from the command line, or I wouldn't suggest like trying to double click a file like the index file or anything like that. What I would run is .NET run on the main project, the root folder of that project, and that should spin up some kind of web host to do that. If you're publishing and you want to like run it in like a static file host, you have to publish the application before it will be in a runnable state without like that web server .NET run command. So thanks for the follow, Florimez. I cannot read that name, but thank you for the follow anyway. Appreciate it. So the idea here, maybe not a function, because I don't expect to really return anything. What if I supply the user with an action that takes a T item and an alert box, and then I can just configure it. I'll just call it map. I won't put a name on it. I'll just call it map. Get set. Let's see. So if I'm declaring a mapping action, then it's going to be something I don't want to throw away. I want to throw away the, okay, we're going to have two parameters because it's an action. It's going to take two things. I'm going to throw away the first T item thing, and then I'm going to say alert box is my second thing. And then I'm going to lambda into this and just return back. Actually, it could be a no op. I just don't want... I don't want this to crash is all if nothing is supplied. When is the next live coder event, and how do I sign up to watch? Oh, live coder conference. Is that what you're talking about? Live coder conference? 2, I think is what it's called. I'm going to have to find that. I need to find that event sign up page. Let's see. It's a great question. Let's see. Maybe he's got it in his profile here. So this is being hosted by Jeff Fritz, and I'm going to say it might be, I don't see it in his timeline. I think this is the code party. Here, if you go to this channel, go to this channel and try that channel. June 20th looks like the date, but if you follow right there, am I not following us? All right. So you want to make sure you follow the Live Coders channel, and then you should be able to get an alert there. I don't think there's a sign up per se. I think it's just being shown. It's a live stream, so it just comes on and then you follow there. So that should do it. All right, so back to the map idea here. So I'm going to see if there's a way I can just map certain properties that I want. So what if I get the entire alert box? I don't know if this is going to be overkill, but we'll take 2 parameters, we'll throw away all of it and do a no-op if there's nothing. And then, yeah, I don't know. This is going to change this code here. So I'd have to then set up some public properties, I think. So I want to have a CSS class property. Oh, should be a string. Like that. And then, again, I don't know if this is a good practice, bad practice, anything like that. I'm just trying some things out today. And then bool disabled. So let's try those. And I'm going to remove that. So we'll say CSS class equals alert danger. So we'll set a default to danger here, and we'll set a default to false, which it should be disabled by false automatically. We'll leave it just in case. What do I specialize in when it comes to software development? I would say C#, web, C#, HTML, CSS, full stack, .NET. Full stack .NET would be more fitting, I guess. So I'm going to say CSS class equals CSS at CSS class, and then at, whoops, disabled. So what I'm looking for here is kind of a one-size-fits-all map that I can just do all my properties like that. And then at the index level, now instead of having 2 separate maps, let's just say map equals, I'm going to change my CSS map here. Like this, and it's going to take 2 items. It's going to take a log item and an action. Oops, it is an action. And a alert box. I think I'm seeing a little bit of a breakdown in this pattern though. Let me drop this back for a second to a regular method, not a lambda method, but a regular method. And it needs to be a void because it is no longer returning a string. And then I just hit an issue here. Where does the alert box come from? So map is actually a function and it's not being called anywhere. Wonder if I should do this in on-parameter set. So I think I need on parameter override. So I don't have a life cycle anymore. On parameter set async, I think, or oh, that's going to be another difficult one. I'd actually need two maps. I'd need a map parameter set and a map parameter set async, I think. Let's try on parameter set first. Because we'll just leave it like this for now. We'll say map t item. Oh no, this isn't going to work either. That's not working out the way I wanted it to. Yeah, this turns it into a different ball of wax because our iteration before was on the for each. We could call it in line. I mean, this is kind of ugly. I don't know if this is a good thing. Let's see. Map doesn't produce anything though, so let's try this item. And then this. And no, it does not like that. Oh, because I did that wrong. I'm doing this all wrong. Shoot. I just messed this all up. Doing this all wrong. So I got lost in the two different levels here. I wanted to do this at the alert box level, not the alert list level. This is why my map isn't working. So I wanted to take these. See, my alert box already has both of those properties, but they are parameters. And if I set parameters through this map, it may get ugly. Let me think here. How do I want to address this? I have my map. I have... let's do var. No. I'm getting stuck. I don't like it. Var. I want to set both of those properties. I want to pass in the alert box to the map function and let that get set. This works much better on a single property approach. Thank you for the raid, Tail Learn to Code, which is the Chad Green channel. Thanks for the raid, Party 7. Welcome. We are hacking away at some Blazor components today. So I'm just kind of shooting off the hip with this alert box approach here, and it's kind of gotten out of sorts for a minute. I should probably back this code up to a working state again. I kind of got off the rails a little bit It's not working how I wanted it to. I'm trying to figure out if I can recover this and make it do what I want it to do. So the idea was, we have a list of items that gets bound to a list of multiple alert boxes. And I'm trying to come up with a convenient generic map method so I can set properties on an internal component with just like one line of code. And I'm trying to make it like super simple and intuitive, but I kind of got lost in all the different lifecycle methods and things that might be required to do this. It works on a singular property level, but when I try to come up with a more generic approach, it starts to take a nosedive. So the idea was to use to pass in the instance of each alert box and let a function decide what the properties are going to be, but I don't think that's going to work. I may need like just like a DTO or something, or an interface maybe. How do I want to handle this thing? How do I want to do this? I think the interface approach might actually work. So what I want to do is, in my alert list, I want to put a mapping parameter in that I can put any arbitrary code in that will map all of the properties for any alert box that is rendered within that list. So I can set individually the class in the disabled state, and if I add more properties, they are just there to map to. I'm trying to think, and I may be overthinking this, of how I want to do this. So I'm going to have for each over each item. Let's do this. Let's just do this var temp equals, and then I want to call my map function. Oh, it's not returning anything, so that's not even going to work. So it's an action. That takes the alert box, but the alert box hasn't been created yet because it gets initialized there, so I can't use that. I can't do an alert box. I need to do something else. So what I was hoping for was I could go in here and say map equals item, and then say lambda, and then say that, lambda, what I wanted, this is the interface I kind of, or the code I kind of wanted. I wanted item and the alert, and I wanted to say lambda alert dot, let's say disabled, if item ID or equals item dot ID is equal to 5, kind of like that. I want to say if I'm on item ID 5, then the alert is disabled, and then I can have multiple properties that kind of bind together like that. So internally, that thing gets set. I don't know if that's going to work though. It may be overkill. The map idea looked really nice though. Maybe there's just, I'm thinking too widely. I don't know. This previous example worked well. think that I'm going to keep it in the original format. I don't think people will understand the map thing too much. I think it probably dives a little bit too far into the functional space. And I think the property, per property, might be more intuitive than trying to map everything and boil the ocean here. So let's try it. Let's do an undo. Massive undo here. Go back to the mapping. Yeah, I think this works better. Just from an API standpoint, I think this is more approachable. Hey, Mr. Krista Mars, welcome. Welcome to the show, Mr. Krista Mars. How's Detroit Rock City doing? You're back in Detroit, right, my friend? This is like how, this is not how you should use Git. Like, I'm just doing like Control Z. I should have set a Git branch here when I started messing around with these different ideas. So this is not a best practice, but it is an idea that I think is worth running with and checking out. Let's see if this will run again. So this does work. I was just thinking a little bit bigger than this one example. I think I thought too big. I think I was making more of a mess out of the situation than I was solving more problems. So we'll backtrack. We'll digress for a moment. Let's see here. It keeps wanting to take focus of my chat room. Chris loves being home. It's awesome, man. Glad you're back home in Detroit. Hope the weather's doing well there. We had some really nice days here. We're not too far south, but things were still nice and cool this week. So I'm sure Michigan was nice and cool too. Yeah, right? We did like dinners outside and all that, which makes a huge difference in the current state of things when you can't really get out much. All right, so I think I'm going to pack this up in a gist. I don't think it belongs in a project in GitHub. My GitHub's getting a little full of little demos anyway. But I think I'm going to put this on my gist, and then I'm going to take it one step further before we get too far. Let's do this. This is going to go in the gist. I'm going to create a new branch. I'm going to call it for gist. This is going to be the one I publish. So I'll drop everything in there. I'm going to do the worst commit ever and just say dot. Everything in that commit is going into a gist. The rest of it is going to be just playing around on the show for today. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to convert this at the alert box level. I'm going to use the CSS, the cascading, not cascading parameters. I'm going to use an attributes collection. Splat attributes, that's what it's called. So I'm going to use splat attributes next. So the thing I want to do is inside my alert box, and I have some pre-written code I'm going to paste in. Let's see here, I don't want to mess up my disabled class. So let me merge these real quick. I want to use Blazor Component Utilities. That's a library that I wrote. I'm going to use my attributes property here. So in my div, I'm going to say at attributes, additional attributes, and the CSS class thing we will clean up manually. And then I'll just comment this code out because we will need that, but we're not going to be able to use it in its current form. And then I'll drop this code block. And I will explain as I go because it's going to be a royal mess for a minute if I do not. Let's see. Let's comment that out properly. All right. So Blazor Component Utilities is another thing that I like to talk about. because I wrote this to make life easier when you're writing Blazor components. So we're going to add a NuGet package, and we are going to look for Blazor component utilities in NuGet. This is my package here. I'm going to install it. This gives you some utilities for handling CSS and style attributes in a Blazor component. And it also has some helper methods for handling splat attributes. So splat attributes are a natural part of the Blazor architecture. But if you don't know how to use them, the API is a little rough. So I wrote a little helper that you can get with the Blazor Component Utilities library that turns it into an extension method, basically, versus having to do this all yourself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out this I'm going to take the CSS class parameter here, and I'm going to remove it. So instead of using a CSS class parameter, I'm actually just going to do a read-only property here called CSS class. And then we're going to have to fix this disabled class thing in a minute. We'll look at that in a moment. I'm going to take it out for now. We'll have to patch that in a minute. So what this is going to do is we're adding this attributes here, and any arbitrary attributes that the consumer would like to add, such as a CSS class, data ID, ARIA attribute, and so on, they can tack on to the alert box just as you normally would any HTML attribute. So if we go back up to the index level, you can see I no longer have a CSS class property here. I'm going to have a class property just like normal HTML would. And that is actually going to get captured by the alert box component and then reiterated where it belongs in that tag. So I'm going to capture that alert attribute, and then I'm going to rewrite my class attribute by merging any CSS classes that the user specified in the class attribute. So I no longer even need a property defined for CSS class anymore. I can just use the existing HTML attribute that already exists. What's interesting here is I can actually remove completely the disabled bits if I wanted to. If I didn't have to do the styling, I could just wipe out this entire disabled thing and just use the HTML version of it. But I'm using that here to set a class, so we'll have to keep that, I think, around as well. But I could add other HTML attributes that are not here, whereas before I couldn't. Actually, if we take this off for a minute, or here, we can do it on the alert list. The alert list does not have support for splat attributing. So if I were to come into my alert list and say class equals foo, doesn't really matter what it is, I'm going to get a compile error, or is it going to be a runtime error? I'm going to get a runtime error, I believe. And notice I get this error, and it says does not have a property matching the name class. When you add the attribute attributes directive here, you actually get support for that. But you become the owner of those attributes, and you have to decide how you want to write them out. So I can put attributes here and just render them all out in line, or I can also capture them and append them to existing attributes that I might have here. So that's what I'm doing with the CSS builder, which is part of the Blazor component utilities, is I'm going to say, give me CSS builder. I'm going to have the class alert be the default. So I'm starting with the word alert, and then I'm going to take anything the user supplied as a CSS class and merge those in and append it to alert. So then in my index, when I say alert box class is alert-secondary, it's going to take and append alert-secondary using this extension method. It's going to append it to the alert class. So I end up with alert space alert-secondary. So that's going to combine those together. I also need to pipe in this alert dark if it's disabled. So this is really cool. With the Blazor component utilities, I can patch this in very quick and easy by saying add class. I'm going to say alert dark. And actually I want to put this at the end. Let's see. Or no, I can't put it at the end. I'll put it here. Right here, and I'm going to say disabled here. So whenever this is disabled, it will automatically add alert dark because there's a method here. I like to put this here. People say they don't like this. They don't like the explicit attribute names, but I think it makes the code easier to read. So add class alert dark when it's disabled. That makes it much easier to understand what's happening, in my opinion. So now we can do that, and we do not need this read-only property anymore. So refactor that out. We still need to set this as disabled, even though it really doesn't do anything. It may actually be something we can remove from the HTML. I'm not sure. I'm sure maybe there's a screen reader thing. I don't know if Chris is still around. If I disable a div, does that actually do anything accessibility wise? Then the class is going to say, actually, I think I can remove this extra alert here as well. And let's control F5 and see if we still get the same. Oops, I need to go back and fix the error that I intentionally put in to make a point. Div won't do anything with a screen reader unless you have an ARIA role assigned to it. Very good to know. That's why I'm glad you joined the chat room. So my dark is the only one working for some reason. I think it's because I'm not passing down. It should still have defaulted. I don't know why I'm not defaulting to alert danger. So I'm merging that in. If no class attributes are assigned, that's the problem right there. This now should be CSS, or sorry, class. So I lost that property. Now CSS map should still be valid. Let's try that. There we go. So now I just eliminated a property altogether that I don't need. Yeah, so that's a great point. Chris is pointing out div is not semantic like a header, a nav, a body, etc. It's just a kind of dumb container. It's not semantically representative of anything useful. That's why we shouldn't use them for certain things, like shouldn't attach like button click events and stuff like that without. There's like a whole lot of work you have to go through to make a div clickable and still accessible. You got to put your arias, values and roles and all that whatnot in there. So you gotta be really careful with that stuff. Buttons should be buttons. for the most part. It's just a divider. It's just a figment of my imagination. It's a thing. Div spam is...
I'm gonna go ask directions for our
embarrassing
next
failure.
huge embarrassing failure.
You're a huge embarrassing failure.
Yeah, that's a rabbit hole. Like, I just, you don't want to dive down. If there is a meaningful component you can use that takes care of those things for you, you don't really want to reinvent like all of that stuff. So don't make a div a button, basically, right? Use a button for a button. The button comes with all the button click events and things it needs for screen readers. Use the button. Just like our dismiss button here is a button, so we can easily disable it. So it does what it's supposed to do. Yes, and semantic by default. So now we've kind of simplified our code a little bit. We've got just a single class attribute here, and our alert list has a class attribute here. What's nice about the class attribute instead of a class property is I get IntelliSense now. This is awesome. So I can change that to like success, and you can see that's green when I re-render it. So Blazor component utilities and the inherent framework splat attributes will help you with that. And then now in my alert box, I can assign things if I wanted to. If I say data dash foo equals var, that will actually translate through as well. So if I look up at my top one here, I don't know what exactly I need data dash attributes for. There it is. So div data dash foo equals bar actually comes out in the rendered HTML now. If I didn't have the splat attributes enabled, you would not get that. You'd get an error. So with that said, I will put a little service announcement out there that splat attributes are really cool. Use them when you think they are going to be helpful. They do come with a performance cost. So while they're nice and they give you a little bit better API surface because of IntelliSense, they do have a considerable performance impact if you're using a ton of these. So if you have, say, one page of alert boxes, there's 25 of them, maybe that's not a big deal if they all have a splat attribute on them. If you had maybe 2,500 alert boxes, you're going to see a noticeable performance difference if you have a splat attribute versus a generic property. It is what it is. I think it's because it's a collection. It's actually a dictionary. So this add class from attributes is hiding the fact that it is searching through a dictionary, which is another reason I suggest you use my Blazor component utilities to do this, because if you do not, there are less performant ways to check this dictionary. I'm actually doing a try get. What is it? Try something or other. I want to say try parse, but I know it's not try parse. It is doing a what is the name of that? Maybe try get. It's using the most efficient way possible is the point, but let's see. Oh, it's a different name on a CSS builder. It's got a different name on GitHub than it does. This is a bit of a legacy project for me. It's something I wrote about a year ago. Let's see here. It is under extension methods. So internally, it is using, nope, it's not an extension method. It's in CSS Builder itself. Try get value. So if you're not using try get value, if you're doing if an if statement of some sorts or checking has value, that is much slower than doing try get value. Try get value does everything in one pass. So there's some compiler magic that happens in try get value that makes getting an item from a dictionary a single pass rather than a a two-part pass. So if you were to check for the class key and then get the class value, you're checking your dictionary twice. Once to make sure it exists, the second time to get the value. If you use try get value, it does the check and the fetch at the same time, making it twice as performant. So if you're going to do this, use my library and just run the extension method, and it's also going to shore up any nulls for you as well. So if it does a null check, so if for some reason this dictionary had a null in it, it would not fail. So make it easy on yourself. Don't write the same code I had to write. So we can do that with CSS Builder. It makes our styles easier to navigate as well, and makes the code a lot easier to read. So this is pretty cool. I like the map idea. CSS Builder or Blazor Component Utilities and CSS Builder is a nice approach as well. I probably won't put that in the gist just because it requires a NuGet package. Unless I put it in a comment. I could put that in a comment. Let's put it in a comment. I'll put that on the gist as well. So, NuGet.org. Blazor component utilities, and we'll put that here. Boom. We'll put I like HTML quotes better, or comments better than the Razor ones for some reason. So we'll put that here. We'll say Blazor component utilities, so I don't misspell it. I'll just copy it. Requires the following package. Yeah, you know what? Forget the gist. I'm just going to push this all into a branch and put it on my GitHub. Let's do that. I'm going to do some really bad housekeeping. Just don't look for a second. I'm just going to push all this back into a single branch. Let's merge this back up. Code like nobody's looking when 27 people are watching. Branches. Merge from where we were on. It said for gist, but it wasn't. So merge all that in. I'll make sure it runs. And it runs. So I will push this up to GitHub. Let's do a little cleanup real quick. Friday confessions. I love it. I know I have branches for days that I just... Let's delete these. I'm going to keep this master branch. It's fine. Delete. Delete. Yeah, whatever. It's got changes. Good for it. Delete. We'll be PC here too. I know this is like the default thing, but it's kind of it's been suggested that we change some terminologies. So we'll make this our main branch, and that will be the primary branch on GitHub when I push it. So we'll make this a little bit semantically more friendly to folks out there. All right, close all tabs. GitHub. I should probably create a new project for this. Blazor Day demo. So we'll make this a public repo. Create. And then I need to go ahead and push this up. And we should be able to do this right here through our GitHub. Let's see, where is this thing at? There we go. Push to GitHub. And then I can just put in... Is it trying to... Oh, push to remote repo. There we go. Then I pop in the URL. Boom. Yeah, I know I could have done it on the command line. But I'm lazy. And I do things from my IDE. And that should do it, though. Just copying that link, putting in there. Should be enough. Boom, Blazor Day. There it is. So people should be able to find that now. And I'll pop that in the chat room for everybody if you want it. There it is. And I promised some folks on Twitter that I would share this. And let's see. Let's see here. I promised some people, there it is, that I would publish this. And now they should have it. So all the tips and tricks are out there. You can grab them at that repo. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to take them now. We can look at anything else you want to check out. Other than that, if we don't have any more questions, we will go raid another channel. Oh look, I have a new Visual Studio update. We'll check that out next week too. How's work going? Chris, work's going great, man. So I've been remote for 5 years, so I've been a little bit immune from the current state of things. So I'm just continuing to work from home, getting some new gadgets and stuff for streaming. So so check this out. Let's see. Let's do a little OBS magic here. So Progress has hooked me up with a new green screen, and I'm loving this thing. I really like it. If I go into my video capture here, see if I can figure out how to disable the green screen effect really quick, and then you can see what it looks like. Filters. Boy, you'd think they'd make an easy way to disable it. There is not. I'm kind of new to OBS here too. If I mess with that, it's going to break everything. Why can I not just disable it temporarily? Oh well. So I've got a new green screen anyway. If I were to move the camera, I guess you can see pretty well that it's... My office is back there. Oh, and I just knocked the lighting down. So the green screen is pull down like that. Like that. Mr. Baldbeard Builder showed me how to do that. So I found a green screen based on his recommendations that had a pull down. So I can pull down my green screen and put it up whenever I'm not using it, which is super nice. So that's cool. So work is doing good in getting me supplies I need to do more live streams, which is nice. Working on some lighting for the show. Lighting's a little weird with green screens. The Telerik UI for Blazor is coming along really well. We've got lots of new components out. We have accessibility support now. It came early this year, really early this year. But Chris, since you're the one that asked, accessibility, keyboard navigation, all those things baked right in. So you can see we've got all the major accessibility stuff. What influenced the accessibility bits? We've been doing this since day one, man. So if you go all the way back to Telerik UI for Ajax, this is like 18 years old, 16, 18 or something like that. This has been accessibility compliant for quite some time. So this is our oldest UI product, and it dates way back. If we go to documentation, Telerik UI for Ajax, yeah, I don't even know when they added this, but it's been there ever since I've used it, and it's been quite a while since I was a customer. So it's been about 5-6 years since I was hired here, so it's been at least 12 years since I've been a customer. Let's see, where is it at? I know it's in here. There it is. Yeah. As of 2008. Look at that, man. As of 2008. The Rad Combo box has had... So that's just for the one component. So it's... that was probably in the phase where it was being added. So I'd say 2008, 2009 is when we started adding it. But we've got ARIA support, WCAG, compliance, section 508. All those things are in there. And that's, again, that's our oldest product. So some of the newer ones, they have it as well. Blazor, we started right away. So accessible keyboard navigation, all that stuff works. I'm not an end user of those features, but I know we work pretty hard on them. So I don't know how to, I feel bad saying this, I don't know how to actually test them all out. I'd love to check them all out sometime and just see how they perform. I'm just not that knowledgeable of the accessibility stuff. I'll have to maybe get with you sometime, Chris, and we could tinker with it and see how those things affect how the components are used. It'd be pretty cool to see. So I know, like, our data grid. Let's see if I can get tabbed over to it. I don't know how to do it in this view, but I know you can like tab through all the rows and everything and use your keyboard, because I've seen the code for it. I've seen the source code for all these. Every cell has a keyboard navigation property to it, and you can go in, and if you're in like the in-cell editor, add product, there we go. See, I can navigate by tabbing through this, and I can use my up and down keys to set dates, and the weight here and everything. So all the keyboard navigation and stuff works. I keep tabbing past the update command here, but I just hit space and hit update. So I know all that stuff is there. It's pretty cool. So work's going great, man. Thanks for asking. All right, we should probably see who else we can raid today. We've got Clark, we've got Lana. Let's go check out what Lana Lux is up to. I'm getting into some VR, AR stuff soon, and Lana Lux does Unity development. So that's a nice segue, because I may do some Unity on the show not this show, but another show. We have another channel at Code It Live that I might do some Unity dev on sometime soon, just to check that out. I've got, again, progress is amazing, and I've got this new gadget, and I'm pretty happy with it. So this is a Oculus Quest. So we'll hopefully do some Unity dev for that someday. As soon as I can figure out how to get started with that, we'll go over to the Code It Live channel and hack away. So let's go say hi to Lana, and we'll come back next week and do some more Blazor stuff. How about that? Have a good weekend, folks. Bye-bye.